So I'm Rexanne Williams, and I am the host for tonight's Sunday Side by Side. And I am so excited that we are going to introduce you to our mother-daughter duo, Juleen and Kayla Jackson. I saw them at the Utah Brightest in June, and I just loved how contagious their laugh was, their sweetness was, everything about them that was on stage when they were there doing the maintenance part. And I just wanted to get to know them more. So I reached out and they graciously accepted to do this side by side interview. And I'm just so excited that you're going to get to know them better and just see what a really delight they are. And before we start the interview, we're going to see a little slideshow presentation of them first. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy, for doing that. Now, would you ladies like to explain where you were and what was going on during that slide? Because I think that's kind of interesting too to start this off. Whoever would like, mom or daughter, Juleen or Kayla.
Why don't you go first?
Okay. Thanks so much, Roxanne. That was a lot of skin. Sorry, that was a lot of nudity in that slideshow. I hope no one was too shocked. All of our just came back from the beach. So those are the pictures that we were taking away because we hadn't been together as a family. So those are kind of fun. But we didn't have any before pictures.
I know.
Together, we've lost 110 pounds this last year. And so we looked quite different at the beach a year ago. And we'll get some of those pictures because that's kind of an interesting contrast. So I'm Juleen Jackson. I live in a place called Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is just a half a mile from the Washington, D.C. line. We're about 20 minutes from the White House. So for all intents and purposes, we live in Washington, D.C. I've been married for 31 years, had 7 children. 2 little sons died in infancy. Kayla Rosie is our oldest living child. She's 29. Can I reveal your age, honey?
Yes, I mean, I was going to anyway, so we're
good. Kayla, I'm 55. Kayla's 29. There's no secrets in the house. I always say, ask us anything you want. We're a colorful family. Obviously, we have a lot of fun with that. My husband and I have been married 31 years. We have a 26-year-old son who plays basketball in Paris, France. He's there now. He was in the NBA for 5 years, and now he's playing overseas in Europe. We have a 24-year-old daughter. You saw the picture of all of our daughters there. She's a doula. She's delivering a baby. She is also a yoga instructor. Then we have a 21-year-old son who is also a basketball player in Utah. Just recently came home from a church service mission in Las Vegas. So it's great to have him home. And then a 16-year-old daughter home. And I loved yoga. I do yoga probably 4, 5, 6 times a week. We have 2 little doggies. I'm the national instructor for an organization called Moms for America. So we got George Washington who's joining us. I usually teach here, so I have several busts. The kids like to make fun of all the heads we have in the house, but so I teach Mamas a Liberty Begins at Home and the miracles and stories of America, and so the kids have grown up and Kayla actually has spoken and done work with Moms for America as well. So it's fun to work together in that regard. But okay, I think, and I love health and I love learning, and we talk a lot about eating in our home, and we like to work out a lot. We have athletes, and so Bright Line Eating is just fit in. So, I mean, everyone in my family knows about Bright Line Eating, whether they're doing it or not. So, Kayla, Rosie,
Yes. So
Wait, Kayla, one second. Just let me interrupt for
yeah.
1 second. I just make sure with all the participants, we just make sure that your cameras are turned off and you're also muted, so that way we won't have any distractions. Thank you. Okay, Kayla, sorry about that. Go ahead, sweetie.
No worries. So yes, I'm Kayla. I am the oldest in the family, and I also live in the Washington, D.C. area. I live just down the street from my parents, so that's super fun to live close to them. My husband and I, so I'm married to Jake. We've been married for almost 8 years. And before we were in the DC area, we were both at school at BYU. We moved back here about 3 years ago, and it's just so fun to be back in this area. I currently work full time for the church. Actually, I work for the family history department. So I work for Family Search, and I am their marketing manager over Africa. So I lead all of the marketing and promotional efforts for the family history department in sub-Saharan Africa. So I cover about 53 countries and have had the chance to travel there frequently. I'm going back in just a couple of weeks. So I love to travel. I love to read. I love podcasts. Also, I've just grown up loving to work out and really in tune with health. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything about me.
Love it. Love it. Now I guess we'll just go down my list of questions and I guess Mama, you can go first and then we'll just switch right over to Kayla each one. The next one is, when did you realize you had a problem with food?
I think very early on. I came from a poor family of nine, and scarcity of food was kind of prevalent. And I don't know if I just felt like if I didn't eat the food in the house at the time, it might not be there in an hour or the next day. I do remember when I began to work, in a little burger world and the little snack bar, I just would consume when I had access to a lot of food. I felt like this urgency I had to consume more than I should. I worked at a department store in high school called ZCMI. It doesn't exist anymore in Utah. And at the end of my shift, I would go and put on my ZCMI credit card. Oh boy, I was really establishing bad habits, like a dozen cookies and donuts from their little, I eat them. And I remember thinking, I think I have a problem here. And I got to thinking, I was selling in high school M&Ms as a fundraiser for drama to go take a trip to New York City. And I ate more M&Ms than I sold. So I can laugh about it now, but certainly it cost me a lot of.
Oh, you're frozen.
And
Okay, you're frozen.
I just thought it was delicious. I couldn't get enough. I was always prioritizing, if I'm going to have a social situation, is there going to be food? That just seemed to be really fundamental to always look for, all kinds of NMF. So, yeah, I think for as long as I can remember, there was always just an urgency and desire to eat a lot of
Do you
food.
think it's genetic?
I think so. Probably, yeah. Clearly.
I'm only laughing because I relate to it so well. I mean, you sell your product that you're supposed to be selling, then you got to buy it twice because you have. Oh yeah, been there, done that. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Okay, when did your weight start being a problem? And then the add-on to that was BLE your first program that you tried for losing weight, or do you have a long history of
Yeah, I
diet?
can go first. Yeah. So growing up, I think I was always like 30, 40 pounds overweight, which I think for like the standard American is actually pretty good. But from a young age, I was probably when I was around 10, 11, 12, on a diet or trying to be on a diet. So I did Weight Watchers, I did like the HCG program. I don't know, I feel like I tried everything. under the sun to try to lose that weight. And I think another instance, I'll just share just a little bit. So I found bright line eating and I was able to lose that 30 to 40 pounds and then gained all of that back plus an additional 60 pounds. And that was also when I realized that my weight was a problem. I'd never been that heavy in my life. I was 245 pounds and I'm 5'8". So I think I carried it okay, but I could just feel I didn't have the same amount of energy. It was like harder to get out of bed in the morning, and I'm only in my late 20s. And so that's also another moment, and I'll talk more about that later on, that I realized I have a problem here. And
Yeah.
especially as I was thinking about my husband and I trying to start a family, and here I am almost 90 pounds overweight, and I just could not imagine how could I start having children and all of that entails with this amount of excess weight on my body. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was when I started having children and I was having a hard time taking the weight off. So I believe I was probably about 135 when I got pregnant with my first child, and got down to about.
How tall are you, Tim?
And I'm 5'4". I'm 5'4", and I was 135. So, that was okay. I think I always wanted to lose. I mean, to be honest with you, I probably was anywhere between 150 and 135, but I was about 135, I think, when I got pregnant. And then with each baby, I just couldn't quite seem to, get back. I'd be 145, and then I'd start the next baby, the third baby at 150. And then I would always gain about 50 to 60 pounds. So I was really eating a lot, had 7 babies. So I was pregnant a lot, from about 25 to 40. I had 7 kids. And I just would typically, every time I got pregnant, I would get to 200, and then I began to get over 200. And then the last baby I had that baby, and I think I was 190, and I could tell I was not going to lose any more weight from the baby. So I was 190. And then I tried, like Kayla, I tried Weight Watchers. I might have even taken Kayla to Weight Watchers.
When I was like 12.
Oh, I'm like, oh, please forgive me. I know I probably scarred you. Did I tell you?
It was like good intentioned, and I felt like I needed to go too.
Oh, dear.
So,
I don't know. And that's where, when you can see a little child as struggling with weight, and you really were, now we look back on it and you were not happy at all. But maybe I was so conscious about it. I was paranoid about having daughters that were going to have issue. And so I did Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and HCG and the lemonade cleanse and fasting. And, I would lose weight on all of them, but it was temporary. So I seemed to get to about 160. So I was about 30 pounds heavier than I wanted to be. I wanted to be about 135. That seemed to be. And to be honest with you, I'd still like to lose 10 pounds. But if I stay 135 the rest of my life at 5'4", I feel so good. I'm good. I'm in my goal range right now. And so that is, I most noticeably realized I just couldn't take the weight. I was gaining so much with each pregnancy and just having a hard time taking it off, and gaining more with each pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you even know how many times you gained? I mean, how many times you joined Weight Watchers?
Oh,
was it more than once?
Yes. I think it was like 4 or 5 times for me.
Yeah, probably 14 times for me, over the course of 15 years, once a year.
Yeah.
The point system.
That definitely is a very familiar tune for me. I don't even know how many times, but it was countless and numerous. And then after finding, Bright Line Eating, I realized I would have never, ever, ever been successful in Weight Watchers, because as long as they were doing the sugar and the flour, which they did, I would have never been.
You could eat completely processed food then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Very sugary food.
Yep, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, who of the two of you, which one found BLE first?
Why don't I go first? Because I introduced Kayla to it. Yeah. So we were living back in Colonial Williamsburg. Roxanne, you might know where that is, being a Virginia. Virginia.
I do.
And and a little missionary from our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, came over to dinner one night. And you know how they say when you share your heart, it causes other people's heart to change. Well, she shared her heart that night at the dinner table. We fed she and her little missionary friend dinner. And she told us about this program, Bright Lane Eating. And it instantly, it's like the spirit triggered something in me. This little gal has spoken truth. So she left. I Googled Susan Pierce Thompson and I was off to the races. And that was 7 years ago, May 2017. Immediately took the 14-day challenge. I think I lost like 10 pounds during the 14-day challenge. I signed up for boot camp and I have been with Bright Line Eating ever since. So at some point, I told you, didn't I?
Uh-huh.
I told you about Bright
Were
Line
you
Eating.
living at home? Kayla, had you already left home? You were not.
I was at
BYU.
Yeah,
Okay.
I left home. And you had mentioned it because you were working the program and you had lost. How much did you lose that first program?
I think 15.
Yeah,
15.
So but you could tell. And one of the things I love about my mom is, and our relationship is we always like to talk about, well, health has always been a forefront conversation for us, but just like best practices, like whenever any of us finds a nugget of truth, like we instantly want to share. So my mom shared with me, and I was at BYU, and I mean, I had the reaction that I think all of us have had that, that sounds ridiculous. And especially at college, like you want me to give up flour and sugar to lose weight. Like, I don't think that that's feasible. But I started listening to the blogs. And I think it just goes to show too, I don't know, you never know like what you're sharing and that impact can have. Maybe people are initially resistant, especially with my mom. I feel like oftentimes she'll share something with me and I'm always kind of like, I don't really know if it works for you, not going to work for me. But her telling me, like, I was curious. So I started to listen to the vlogs and then I decided to do the 14-day challenge and did it for 14 days and was just amazed. Like, oh my goodness, here's a program that it was hard the first couple of days, actually felt like something that I could continue to do to lose weight. This is the first program that felt like it was actually effective. So yeah, that's how I was introduced, was through you.
So that's a good sign, mamas, when our children seem like they're tuning us out or rolling their eyes or not listening. Just continue to lead by example.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm curious to know.
So do you want?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. You
now,
go
I'm just
ahead,
curious to know, did you ever let the missionary know that you joined the 14-day challenge? Did she ever know that you had success? Oh,
yeah.
Good.
You're not going to believe this little missionary stayed in touch with us now. She's in actually the congregation that we worship at in Bethesda, Maryland. And she is our youngest daughter's religion teacher in the mornings. It's the craziest thing how she's still in her life. She's not working Bright Line Eating right now, but is she? I don't think she's doing the program. Yeah, I don't think she's doing the program, but she is doing great. She's doing great and in a good sized body, and I think is healthy. Yeah, I mean, that was the most memorable aspect of her mission for me was her introducing us to Bright Line Eating.
So let me, because I think, finish my story on how Bright Line Eating has worked for me. So I joined with the 14-day challenge, had success, and lost all of the weight that I had been carrying around for forever, that 35, 40, I think it was like around 30, 35 pounds. But I treated it like a diet. So the minute I got down to my right size body, I started to live by maintenance by exception. And I didn't even know that that was the term, but that's what I started to do. And so that was back in 2017. So from 2017 to, well, I'd say from 2018 till 2022, it was the merry-go-round cycle of resuming, breaking my lines, being in the ditch. And so initially it was that cycle. And so I just was kind of losing the same weight that were trying to maintain, and it was steadily creeping. And then eventually I gained all of it back over the course of a couple of years. And then after I gained all of it back, it was right during the pandemic, right before the pandemic. I just graduated from college. I started to gain more. And that's when I gained the additional 60 pounds. I just was really, I think emotionally wasn't ready for some of the transition that comes from graduating from college with that on top of COVID. So I gained all of that weight and eventually decided to just leave the program. I thought that bright line eating actually was causing me to just have these terrible, terrible binges. I'd never binged like this in my entire life. And I love the program now because I feel like it really emphasizes make sure that you're eating enough food so that you can keep your lines. And looking back, I wasn't eating enough food, and that's why I was going through this cycle. So finally, I got to a point where I think I hit rock bottom. I was 245 pounds. I was trying to do macros, and I was losing the same 15 pounds, but I was still telling myself mentally that, oh, this is working. And I realized it was not working. And so I remember so vividly after I had had a weigh-in, I was driving to choir practice, and I love praying in the car. It's my favorite place to pray. And I just was like, Lord, I don't know what to do. I'm trying. This is not working. I need to figure out how to lose this weight. I cannot continue to live my life with this amount of weight on my body. Like, I just know it will inhibit me from being the person that I can be. And I just felt really clearly this shift within me. I really feel like it was the grace of Jesus Christ. And the answer that I felt was, you need to do bright line eating, and you actually need to do the program. And so I resumed on June 5th of last year, and I've been bright ever since.
Yay!
And so
Yay!
lose 8 pounds. And yeah, we'll talk more about what the tools were that helped, but yeah, it is a miracle.
Yeah. And Kayla's experience that she had was really the means of me getting on, because for 6 years I was in a BLE trance. I mean, it was slight line eating. I was doing it 70, 80, 90% of the time. And we know bright line eating does not work. Even if you're doing it 90% of the time, it just doesn't work the way the food chatter, the breaking in the lines, just that vicious cycle. And so I was white knuckling it as well, because I don't feel I was getting enough food too. We were real active, and I walk the dog for an hour. I do my class. I just was always hungry. And so that I'll never get that year ago, 2 months after you had your little experience, we were on the beach with the family, and we were all eating the beach food, and their little Kayla Rose had been doing bright line eating again, trying it for 2 months into it, and I was slight line eating, so I was eating all the beach food. And as I looked at that little child, I could just see this look in her face that she needed her mother's help. And I had done, for 6 years, I had done gruesome and gritting my way through bright line eating as a 90 percenter or an 80 percenter. But I felt like the sprinkling of the grace of God on the beach of that day. And I heard the Lord say, you are going to do this for your girl. She needs your help, and you need to do this. And so I haven't looked back. It's been a year for me as well. August 9th of last year. And together we've lost 110 pounds. I think we might have already said that. But we really have come into our higher and best self. And it's been one of the greatest privileges of my life to be able to do this program with my beautiful girl, and to have the success, and to be able to talk about it. Every time we see each other, we shore each other up. We talk about our program. We talk about what we're struggling with, or the accountability call that day. And it's just been such a grace of God gift to be able to do it together with your daughter.
Did you gain any weight back while you were going back and forth, in the yo-yoing in the ditch?
Okay, so I lost so I was trying to lose 30 pounds, I say, for 30 years. And so, when you're doing bright line eating, even 90% of the time, you're not losing weight. And so I was, I was feeling good, and I was eating pretty healthy, but I'd, fall off the bandwagon maybe a couple times a month, which would sometimes lead to 2 weeks out of the month, and so I lost that 30 pounds finally. It was taking me 30 years to lose it. I lost it, and so I was about 165, and now I'm about 135.
Yeah, amazing. It's great. Yeah. How did you handle seeing the weight piling back up on your daughter as you saw her struggling with her, and the weight was coming back rapidly?
She's suffering, and I like any woman that, is gaining weight like that, they can put on a brave face like all is well, but you can just tell. I knew my little daughter keep calling you little, even though I'm 5'4" and you're 5'8". But
She's always going to be your baby.
my little girl. But
Yep.
it's very hard, and I felt ashamed sometimes at the poor example that I was, and so it was hard, it was hard.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. I love gave me goosebumps to hear it though. It's such a sweet story. Um, Now, is there any particular part of your BLE program that you find difficult to follow, or not that you're not following it because you're already talking about how bright you are now, but are there parts that are like, whoa, this is hard? I really, I knuckle down and get this done, but are there parts that you find, oh, this is a little bit harder than I want it to be?
So I think I'll just talk a little bit about the resume because I think there are a lot of us in the community that are not crystal basers
Right.
and probably have resumed a million times. And that's hard. Like that's a struggle to like try to get back on. And so when I did that resume last year, I think what I had always struggled with prior to that was fully surrendering to the program. I just couldn't, I wanted to make exceptions, I wanted to make adjustments. And I really had to get honest with myself. I had decided to resume in May, but I didn't actually end up resuming until June. And I just needed to get really clear about what I wanted and why I wanted it. And I had to get really honest about what I was doing was not working. And I think that's really hard to do. I think one of the beautiful things about Bright Line Eating that we learn is that we are not a reflection of our thoughts. Like there is a higher authentic self. You might be having thoughts come to your mind that are not your highest self. And I had to really face some of those and get clear that, I'm having these parts that are coming up and saying that I need these exceptions. And in reality, it was not serving me. So I think getting really honest about that. And the other thing was once I got honest about that and I resumed, it was just an emphasis and focus on the actions. It really didn't matter at the end of the day if I was not feeling it. And it's so interesting to look back at my 5-year journal because the time will pass and I don't remember a lot of the painful parts. But as I look back at that resume, the first few months were hard. They really were hard. And so I think for me, though, it was just I'm going to prioritize putting my program first. I'm going to put my recovery first, and I'm going to do whatever it takes every single day to have a bright day. And that just all comes down to actions. What is the next bright action that I can take to be bright? And when we take that one bright action after the next, we build this momentum and we can ride on the momentum. So now, it's not to say that there aren't struggles because I think, transitioning to maintenance, like that's been an adjustment, trying to figure out what's the right food plan for my body and making sure, I'm fueling my body. I'm not trying to lose weight. Let's make sure that I'm eating enough food. So that's something that I'm learning right now. But I really love what Susan says in Bootcamp 2.0, like build a solid foundation. And as you build a solid foundation, like it won't fail you. You won't experience what would come if you are putting, cracks in or you have cracks in your foundation. So I feel like there are struggles, but they don't feel maybe quite as monumental because of the solid foundation of actions that I have taken over the past year.
Yeah, that's
one of the things that I wanted to ask you. One of the things I wanted to ask you when you talked about your surrender, and you talked about, it sounded like this very, very sweet, sweet spiritual experience in the car that you had that night, So what did surrender look like at the very beginning for you? What did that mean to you when you said I had to surrender?
I think I had to accept that I was going to do the program without any exceptions.
Okay.
And that I really love Joanne's scale of what is a surrender. Like you can just be complying, but not really feeling it versus like a true and total surrender. And I think when I resumed, like every day it looked a little bit different. And so I think the surrender was deciding to put my program first.
Okay.
It was important for me to make any excuses and not put it first. So I think it was prioritizing that. and then really just focusing so much on actions. I didn't try to get hung up on the feelings so much as I were on the actions. Like, are my actions actually reflecting the surrender that I'm hoping to have, even if I'm not feeling it in the moment? So I think that's for me what it looked like.
Yeah. Yeah, me
Perfect.
too. I mean, we've heard this, the heart of the path that we're on, the heart is surrender, right? And I think that's the most difficult thing for me for the 6 years when I was doing slight line eating is I was just resistant. I just thought the lines were too rigid. I believed in the principle of no flour or no sugar, not snacking in between, but could I really not have, not my food during the holiday? I mean, I just thought that was a little too extreme. But I think you feel that way when you're resisting, right? Resistance is like the calling card of addiction, that you just like, you're going to do it on your terms because you think that your way is better, and when we know that it's not. And so now I think I read somewhere the antidote to resistance is getting curious. Why am I resisting this? All right. And that's interesting enough. That's when you can, you get familiar with your parts. What little part in me is wanting to protect me, is thinking that I won't be happy, I won't feel joyful if I completely surrender. And you kind of have to have an experience with those parts and those core emotions that are usually attached to the parts. And that too, I wasn't really into part works until probably the last year when I completely surrendered. And I
Okay.
realized that, in order to unblend from some of the indulger, the saboteur, I am going to have to have a discussion with these parts. And what do they say? Invite them into your home, have a conversation. They are a part of your family. Let them know that, you can still be happy without, this I'm going to do, bright lining by maintenance, because that doesn't make me happy. I have 6 years. We have years of knowing that it doesn't make us happy when we don't fully surrender. And so now bright line eating I don't feel that rigidity like I did when I wasn't all the way in. Right. And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. All right, so now we're going to take the pendulum and kind of swing it back the other way, because that was kind of like the hard parts. So now tell me about three to five of your most important habits that really help you stay bright. What are the positives in this program that you just love them?
Yeah.
Okay, whoever wants to go
So,
first.
yes. So, one thing is I try to listen to some kind of bright line eating content or read every single day. I just want to stay close to the mothership. I think there's power in community. So, whether it's an accountability call or the daily reader or a course or a vlog, I just always want to listen to one thing. And I think for me, that gives a lot of flexibility. Some days, all I can do is the daily reader. Some days I can spend, 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes on a call. So that's really important. The second thing that's really important to my program is that I prioritize my sleep. I realized through the inner work that that was my way to relax, was to eat food and to take it easy. And so I really needed to prioritize other methods of relaxation and rest. And so that includes my sleep. The other thing that's really helpful to me are the habit stacks that come from my evening routine. So my days are very full and busy, and I just have found that the more I can prepare for the next day, the night before, the more on things I feel. So sometimes it's like preparing a couple of my meals the night before. I always close the kitchen, always write down my food. I do my skincare. Sometimes I'll set out different things depending on what's going on in the schedule, but it just helps to center me when I wake up in the morning and it's, 100 miles per hour. And then the last thing that I'd mention is I love the nightly checklist. It's my thing. I always print it out every Sunday evening. And I really took to heart Susan's counsel to make sure that the checklist worked for me. So if there are things that are constantly getting old, like that thing is not serving me, I have to reevaluate, whether or not it is keep it, prioritize it more or whether or not I need to get off. So constantly using that as a way to update things. And I also really love how the nightly checklist can allow me to see visually how I'm doing with my program. It just helps me to measure and monitor and to evaluate, okay, I'm noticing that my actions I'm not doing a lot of the actions or the habits that I like, and my food chatter is up. And so I'm able to see just kind of the data and make some connections as to like what is going on. So on my nightly checklist, I try to put habits. I try to put a couple things to scale, like how hungry I am, how much food chatter am I having, did I have a bright day, how bright was the day. And so I just like collecting the data and seeing that week to week.
Yeah, so good, Kayla Rose. We're living similar lives.
Good.
We're doing a lot of the same things. Imagine that.
Kayla, before your mom starts, how often do you change your nightly checklist? I know you said you print it every Sunday, but how often do you kind of reevaluate?
So it's interesting. I feel like I've gotten into a groove where I'm not really making so many changes anymore. But when I started the checklist weekly, I was making changes.
Okay.
But now I would say probably every couple weeks. But I like to just take a look at it before I print it to make sure that like I'm actually wanting to do the things that are outlined on there. So
yeah. Perfect. Okay, Juleen.
So I think it was Susan Pierce Thompson, I heard her say, we all have to take the tiger for a walk 3 times. We have to kick the tiger and take it for a walk 3 times a day. And so, I mean, we have to deal with these meals. And sometimes we're voraciously hungry. Sometimes we don't feel like eating. But I have found a lot of things that Kayla does that has helped me to get my eating 9 times a day of the tiger under control. I love that wash, rinse, repeat that she talks about, that I write down my food the night before. I commit it to 3 people actually now. And then the next day I eat only and exactly that. Wash, rinse, repeat. That is like the floor out of all my habit stacks. That is, if I am busy or traveling or I can't, that is my minimum. I always do that. And then I do food prep like you do. Every morning I set out to do food prep. So I might do a batch cooking for the week, or I might just prep for that day. But like in the refrigerator now, I have a big vat of soy Greek yogurt, and I have homemade granola that I made, and I usually cut up a big a container of veggies for the week. And let's see, I just made a big quinoa salad yesterday, and I'll eat off that. So I'll make something that will last me the whole week, and then I will usually prep my breakfast and make sure I have everything for my lunch and that kind of thing in the morning. Also, proper rest is so important, that if our margins are so tight, we don't have breathing space, and we're just like stretched so thin, you just get depleted. And then things start to get wonky when you're tired. And so getting to bed at a certain, by 10 o'clock, because we're early risers, like sometimes 4 and 5 in the morning. It's interesting because we're not in the food anymore. We have more emptiness in our lives, but if you make friends with that emptiness, all kind of spaciousness opens up. And so Kayla and I say we've never been busier in our life, because we can do more, because we're not in a food coma. And so we probably overschedule ourselves, and we have to be careful, because that can be triggering, right? If you're you're just very slim margins around your life. And so rest is really key. And then in the Daily Reader a couple of days ago, it talked about inner resolve. It said you can have all the support possible, but if there's not an inner resolve in you to stay bright, that support is not going to stop you from eating. And that support, that inner resolve, comes from burnishing it or calling upon it every morning. And it says in the Daily Reader to start with prayer and meditation. And then for me, I do my food prep. I do a little family devotional early in the morning, where I send off a little scripture and a little quote to the kids, and that helps anchor me as I'm a woman of God. I've got this. I do hard things. And then I rebound while I listen to my accountability call and do a little food journaling. And so all those things for me in the morning help my inner resolve. And then I go and do the things. I eat the food that I committed. And then I end with a nightly checklist. Now that is my ceiling. if I do all that, that is a full day of good, strong habit stacks. It helps, re-energize my inner resolve because, we know willpower is finite and it gets depleted. So we have to have more than friends and willpower. We have to have an inner resolve. And some of those are just doing these things that give you that. And then service, you have to enter into the zone of discomfort and say, I'm going to start to be of service to people, even though I'm not sure my program's strong enough or I really know what I'm doing. And so consequently, we both are now getting game leaders, and we have study group, mastermind groups, and I'm a guide to a couple of people. I have a guide, but I'm a guide for a few people, and so all those things help me to have my shield up, like Star Trek. I heard the British say that the other day. So when torpedoes are hitting, all these things that Kayla and I have talked about help us to put our shield up and stay strong. Daily actions.
Okay, perfect.
That was a lot, Roxana.
No, you did good. I loved it. I loved it. Now, share with me what are some parts or habits, or what do you feel like are some of the weak points in your program that you are finding yourself really have to be vigilant about, and that you're always, on guard at certain parts of your program that you wish were stronger, perhaps?
So, I think for me, like my mom mentioned, I like to be really busy. And so I think I'm always having to evaluate if my margins are too small. So I like to push myself, and I'm overachiever, I'm ambitious, like I love a full to-do list and checking it off the list. And so I think I'm constantly having to reevaluate, am I getting enough rest? Am I taking, a moment in the day to continue doing some of like my morning habit stacks? I've noticed the last couple of weeks, the end of summer, things have been really busy. And so I've just kind of been doing a little bit less and less. So that reevaluation of, am I prioritizing my program? And are there more moments that I need to incorporate some rest in my life to make sure that I can keep my program strong?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think sometimes for me, writing down what I say I'm going to eat and then switching it is tough. We live in a city, so we eat out a lot, right? And we go to events, and I sometimes I have the best intentions of eating certain things, and it can be a dangerous thing to make a change on the fly, on the spot, kind of thing. And so I am sometimes challenged by that, and I know Susan Pierce Thompson has recommended don't eat out for 30 days. And I just don't know if that works so well for us in the city.
Well, we travel a
Yeah.
lot too,
We
so
do. And
that's impossible.
And that's an excuse. I can hear myself saying, I can't do that. No, but that is something I have to be careful that I don't make too many changes to what I've committed, because that can be a slippery slope.
Yeah. Well, that leads into the perfect. I'm going to skip that next question and go to the next one, because that one's a perfect segue of like, how do you keep your food bright when things do get hectic, stressful, traveling, or you have other challenges? How are you able to stay bright?
Okay, this is like one of my favorite topics because I travel a lot. I travel a lot personally, I travel a lot professionally. In this last year, I've been to Europe, I've been to 8 different African countries, sometimes multiple times. Anywhere I went to Madagascar, where it's really hard to maybe find fresh produce, to South Africa. I've done family vacations, road trips. Right now we're moving actually. So I'm right in this stint of we're moving. We just bought our first home and we're going to Italy in 3 days. So I know,
Poor
was
thing.
me.
Poor
Was
thing.
me. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, and I travel a lot. So I think for me, the first thing that's really important is you have to prepare and you have to plan. When I did my first international trip, and the longest flight that I've taken is 15 and a half hours, and I actually take that flight pretty regularly. But I created a spreadsheet. And the first few times, especially when I'm doing a kind of travel that I've never done before, I have to be very structured with the kind of planning. Like it gets very specific down to, how many packs of roasted edamame am I taking? How many oatmeal packs? Like I pack a lot of dry stuff, and then I always try to get to a grocery store and get fresh produce. So plan, and prepare. And I just believe in spending a lot of that mental energy in the planning stage and making those decisions before I go, because I know that when I'm on the road, my willpower is depleted. Like I don't have the time and space to think so much through, maybe what restaurant I'm going to or what's the game plan for lunch. So I try to like plan and anticipate that before. The other thing that really helps with traveling is I always try to do that evening routine of preparing the night before. So I will often prep meals. Like if I'm in Africa and I'm at a hotel, I still try to pack my lunch. I'll do a hotel breakfast, I pack my lunch, and then do dinner out. And I'll always pack my lunch the night before. So that way when I wake up, I don't have to worry. I also, when I'm traveling or I'm with family, I try to minimize the time that I'm in the kitchen. And so doing that kind of prep even before the vacation and just bringing that cooler with food makes it really easy to make sure I'm not spending too much time in the kitchen. And then the last thing that I'd say when I'm traveling is I've decided don't hide it. Don't hide that you do bright line eating. You don't have to draw attention to yourself, but you do need to learn how to advocate for yourself. And I had just found in previous years, I really struggled with that. And like advocating, I need to go to a place with a lot of vegetables. So I wouldn't advocate for myself. And then things would start to get sloppy and I would break my lines and the trip would be ruined because then I'm just constantly thinking about food. So I just have decided, this is what I do. I always like to say, if I'm with coworkers, like I just need a place that has a lot of vegetables. And the sooner you do that, the easier it is. And people are mindful and they're respectful. Like I have not had an experience where I've said, hey, I need to go to a restaurant with a lot of vegetable, and people have responded negatively. I've also found too that people don't like to make decisions either. And so I try to get in, when we're trying to decide where we're going to dinner or whatever, and I'm on a work trip, I will make the recommendation. I will anticipate and say, I know there are a couple of restaurants around here that could work for me. So I'm the one making the recommendation. So I know that we're going to a place where I can get a bright meal. So prepare and plan and prioritize. Like you can travel bright. If you can go to Madagascar and travel bright, you can go anywhere in the world as long as you decide a commitment to prioritize your program. And when I've done that, like I've always been able to find a bright meal.
Yeah,
right, Kayla, I'm
gonna the same thing.
Yeah, Kayla, I want to interrupt for just 1 second because I bet you there are a lot of people that are listening or will be listening. Because absolutely, it sounds like you are the queen, the goat of traveling. Okay. So what has been your best tip because I'm sure there have been some fails, that would be expected. Yes. But what is one of your greatest takeaways that you are so glad that you have discovered that it's just a no-brainer that you probably do every time with traveling, especially those long distances?
For those, you'll never regret a packed meal. Is I think the biggest thing. So when I travel for like long periods of time, like I've done a lot of like 36-hour travel days, I'll pack all of the food that I need. I don't make any expectation, like I don't make any expectation that like I'm gonna have a layover in Paris and I'm gonna try to find a meal. No, I'm not even gonna mess with that. I'm just going to bring all of my food so that I don't need to worry about it. So, and then the other thing that I'd say is bring a cutting board, bring a knife, bring plastic bags, like bring some of those things that like, for me, if I had to travel to Ghana and find some of those things to help facilitate bright meals, it just would cause decision overload and like my willpower would be depleted. So I just am a big believer in bring a lot of things that you need. Obviously, you can't always pack like every single meal that you'll have for 2 weeks, but just some of those elements just help for me like mentally feel a lot more at ease in finding a meal. So do the prep work, bring all of your meals and map it out. Try to eat every 4 to 5 hours if you're traveling on a plane, and then bring some of those other elements so that when you're at the hotel, and you've gone to the grocery store with your bell peppers, like you have a knife to be able to cut it. Like those little things, they really make a difference and just helping me feel like confident in being able to stay bright. So I love talking about travel with Bright Line Eating. You can do it. You can do it. It's the best.
It's great. And Kayla,
We should have, yeah, we should have you on just for a traveling show. No, because you sound like you got lots of
that. Yeah,
seriously.
Thank you.
I do a lot of what Kayla does. I'm a whole food plant-based eater. All the girls except for Kayla Rose in the family are whole food plant-based. So I just always make sure I have good protein sources, and you can buy them on Amazon, those little 1 or 2 ounce nut bags or soy nuts or chickpeas or peanut butter packets. And then just go to a grocery store when I go to a grocery store and load up on fruits and veggies. And Kayla Rose turned me on to those cups of oatmeal when you travel. Yes. On an airplane, the stewardess, the flight attendant will bring you hot water and you just pour it in with a little 2 ounce package of pumpkin seeds maybe and cut up a banana in it, and it's delicious hot breakfast on the plane. And so Kayla had I mean she's her go-to.
Yeah, she's got it. She's got it. There's no doubt. She knows how to do that. Thank you. That's amazing. All right, let's move on now and say, are there other members of your family that is everybody supportive of you too? I mean, do they understand what you're doing and they support you, or have you had any backlash or any? I don't
They
mean,
are.
You know, everybody's on board supporting you.
They are. Yeah. My husband, he's the one on the food susceptibility scale. So bless him. It's kind of foreign to him, but he has been very supportive.
The boys kind of tease us. They tease us mercilessly, but they're really supportive. They're really proud of what we've done. And so, maybe dudes just like to tease you, but I've never felt like they've,
Well, and they can't knock it when you have success. So,
there you go. I mean, my husband half the time is like, he doesn't want to subscribe to Bright Line Eating, but he wants to eat like a lot of husbands do. They're curious because they see you're having good success. But
right. Yeah. Well, you're
our 2 other. Yeah. But our daughter, our sisters, I have 3 daughters. They all do a lot of the Bright Line Eating. They'll do flour and sugar, but really sparingly because they can see how good we feel and how much we do. And so,
that's amazing. I'm glad you have that. Glad you have that support. I know a couple of times you've mentioned like getting games, leaders and so forth, but where do you find your best support for yourselves, for your BLE program, other than each other? Where else do you turn to?
So I have a mastermind group. We've been meeting every week for the last year. Love them. And I have a study group that I meet with, and I love them. I really love the weekly Zoom calls. So I've tried to find what works for me best, and that seems to be something that I love. And then I lead Gideon Games. Support was really actually I isolated for the entirety of my program up until last year. So it's been really cool to see just the steps, just baby steps. The other thing that I'll just say too is I feel like supporting myself, like I have to prioritize certain habits to make sure that I'm feeling centered. And so that's another big thing. Like I get support from other people and I've loved that. And just the growth and the awareness that comes when you're sharing and getting feedback from them, but also taking some alone time to journal and ponder and meditate. That also really helps as well. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Good things happen in a relationship. And for the first 6 years, I too kind of trudged alone. And I had one little church BLE group, and it was great. We would study words from some of the leaders of our church and then kind of equate it to our BLE journey. But it was different, quite honestly, from what I'm in now, study groups and mastermind groups and Gideon game groups. And when you're in a relationship with people that eat the same way you do, you are home, right? That's what the reader said a few days ago. You are home with these people because they understand you at a level that a lot of people don't. And so secrecy is the portal to relapse. So if you don't have if you're not known and seen by the community of bright line eating people, it's just easy to keep relapsing, you know? So I think the BLA community is the best support. And I too, this last year, have gone to a level of service that I didn't have the previous 6 years, and we're both having a level of success that we did not have, before then.
So I think I'm hearing from both of you that connection is vital for your program. That you have to. Yep, you have to have it. All right, we're coming to an end here. So, what advice would you give someone just beginning BLE, or perhaps somebody that was where you were a year ago? That you're just constantly in that state of breaking and resuming. You're in the ditch and you're not. You're in the ditch and you're not. Or perhaps we have someone on the call that is brand new. What advice would you give them?
So if you're brand new, I would say just follow the plan. Just follow it. And the first time is always the easiest time. So don't take that for granted
Yes.
when you start. So, and then for those that are like on this constant cycle of resuming, I think the first thing that I'd say is it was really helpful for me to get clear on what I wanted and why I wanted it. Why am I doing bright line eating? And I had to get honest. You are making trade-offs. You are. You're choosing to not have flour and sugar. And I don't like to approach it from a mentality for the rest of my life. I really love that framework of just one day at a time. For today, I'm not having it. Maybe in the future I will, but that doesn't matter to me. All I have is today. And understand though that, even with those trade-offs, what you're doing is a higher way of living. And I just, especially for those women that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we are covenant-keeping women. And the world needs strong leaders. And engaging in this program enables us to be our best selves and enables us to be leaders in a world that feels chaotic and can feel overwhelming. And so I just love the name of the program, Bright Line Eating. Your life gets brighter, you get brighter, your countenance gets brighter when you are free from addiction. And then the last thing that I would say is really commit to putting your program first. When I first resumed, after taking that look as to understanding what I wanted and why I wanted it, I wrote it all out and I read it every single day out loud for a couple of months. And the first line on my paper was, I commit to working a strong program. And so I think when you prioritize and orient your life, your day was successful if you were bright today. And that's how I had to approach it the first few months. Like, even if I was on my smartphone scrolling a lot, or I was doing Netflix for those first couple of weeks when I just didn't feel that great, it was still a win because I had put my program first and I was bright. And my capacity changed. Like, I'm no longer, watching that many Netflix episodes or scrolling on my smartphone as much. But I just think you need to prioritize your program and be honest. Like, if you're not prioritizing it, then and you're not having success, then you need to take a look at that and get curious. But I just have found putting it first and making sure whatever you do to put it first will help you be successful.
So
Perfect.
good.
Love it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add, Juleen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kids can never get that's the wrong question to ask me. Huh? No, I just love the mantra that we're not called to be perfect in this program, but we are called to be unstoppable, right? And the only way that you're not unstoppable is if you quit. And I told my kids the people that lose in life are the ones that quit too soon. And I think sometimes, when we have failed and we get discouraged and we get in the ditch and we think maybe this isn't our program, I have just reminded myself over and over again when I struggled for 6 years, look, I'm only 2 feet from the ditch. So keep coming back. And I struggled for 6 years. I could not work this program. I could not string, a lot of bright days together at times. And so I think the whole point of being unstoppable is time plus experience. Just keep showing up, just keep returning. I mean, look, we're all here on the call tonight, and I dare say most of us aren't crystal basers, or most of us have not been perfect, but we're still in the game, right? And so I think Bright Line Eating gives us the opportunity to practice over and over again, to just keep trying, to keep staying with us, because ultimately what happens, and what happened with me, what happened with Kayla, is shifts begin to occur, and our capacity to do this thing increases. On good days we live, and on bad days we learn. Well, I've had many years of learning what not to do when it comes to eating. I've just messed up over and over. And if you keep showing up, learning every day, ultimately you begin to connect the dots, and there are shifts that occur if we just keep showing up the best that we can, doing the best that we can. For 6 years I was doing the best, and then I began to get better, and then he filled in the gap and helped me to do it. But I still have to do, all these things that we do, and until I die. We're bright lifers for life, but we've got an increased inner resolve that just came from not quitting. We're all here tonight, and that says so much about all of us.
I agree. And I always believe too, the only way you absolutely are going to fail is if you quit. That's a guarantee, right? If you quit. So I know we're up out of our time, but is there anyone that has just this burning question that they would like to ask? Or else we can put it in the chat later, or put it on the Facebook page. Ladies, I'm going to ask you, since you both have my cell phone number, please send me your before pictures, and I will post them for everybody to see, because that's a remarkable journey. 110 pounds. That's remarkable, and we celebrate with you. But we love those before and after pictures, so that would be fun to get those, and to post. All right, thank you so much. This was really fun, and I learned so much about you. And I love the love that I feel between you two, and I love the love that you have for BLE. It was very contagious, and felt it immediately. So thank you, ladies. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.